Tripping. Tripping with Theo Bowl.
Come on, Dre.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Tripping with Theo Bold. I'm your host, Andre Theo Bold. Welcome to the show. Glad you guys could tune in. AT is where it's at on most forms of social media, so make sure you follow me. Bam. So yeah, let's just go and get right into it, man. Um, as you guys know or may not know, uh, Ghostbusters 1 is my favorite movie of all time. All right. Ghostbusters 1 is my favorite movie of all time. And most importantly, man, um, I feel I personally feel like um I personally feel that Ghostbusters didn't I feel like they got lucky with Ghostbusters 1. And I have unlocked why Ghostbusters 1 was so successful, right? So I'm gonna break these things down, but the main so I'm gonna end on why it's not a kids movie because I gotta make sure, I don't cause I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go in, right? I'm gonna go in on why that is. All right. So um let's just start off, right? So Ghostbusters 1 worked for a lot of different reasons. All right. I would say in no particular order, you know. But the storyline for Ghostbusters 1 was strong as hell, man. It was strong, you know? Um, it was strong, right? The opening, so when you think of Ghostbusters, right? Ghostbusters 1, you got to think about the opening image, right? What was the opening image of Ghostbusters 1, right? The opening image of Ghostbusters 1 was you had some college grad students who were fucking around, right? I mean, they were serious about their craft and what they were doing, but they didn't have to really produce anything. It was like they were playing in the lab. They were just having fun playing in the lab. They had this obsession with trying to catch ghosts, you know. Um, and that was the opening image, right? Like you had Peter Venkman trying to holler at chicks through doing experiments. Um, right. But the opening image was a playful, hey, we're just some college grad students, trying to keep this check coming in, right? And then the final image of Ghostbusters 1 was um right, the final image of Ghostbusters 1 was you had um all these guys came together and they saved the city, right? They saved the city from this onslaught of this supernatural force that was coming to end the world, right? So that was a very strong storyline, right? When you look at Ghostbusters 2, right? Ghostbusters 2, you know, um, they made a crucial mistake when it came to the storyline, right? What happened was they started um at the low level again, right? They started like basically they were the laugh of the town, they were the joke of the town, people didn't take them serious, and then they built back up and then they resaved the city, right? That's why that to me, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why Ghostbusters 2 flopped, right? Is when you look at Star Wars, right, there was a good continuum. I can't even say the word continuum. Is that how you say it? But there was a good ebb and flow, right, between all three movies, right? So in the first Star Wars film, it started, you had the whole moisture farm thing with Luke Skywalker. Luke was bored, wanted to go to the academy, and then he ended up being on the team that saved the universe or saved the world or saved the universe for the most part, by destroying the Death Star. Then episode 5 or the Empire Strikes Back, it starts off on a high note and then it comes down and then the it starts off on a high note and then it comes down again and basically they're not destroyed or Luke and the good guys aren't destroyed, but what ends up happening is they barely get away, right? And then episode 6, they start off, building back up to winning and saving the day again, right? So you had that continuity, right? Um, so that's why Ghostbusters 2 um didn't work, right? It's because they basically did rinse, wash, repeat for that. Then what else? You know, let me see what other then after that, like I'm not trying to do it in sequential order, but I'm just trying to go through and just trying to show you like why Ghostbusters worked, right? Um then the 2016 Ghostbusters was hot garbage for a whole nother reason, man. It was just, oh man, like Ghostbusters 2016, that's the all female cast, man. Look, I'm I'm pro women. I'm pro, women doing their thing, man, and all that. I'm not against females being Ghostbusters, man, but I felt like what happened in Ghostbusters 2016 was they doubled down on the femininity, right? Or on on the feminism part, right? They doubled down on it, right? Not only did they have an all-female Ghostbusters cast, but they basically said that the original Ghostbusters didn't exist, and they had them in the movie as just random fucking people. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the same. That's how. That's how He-Man got ruined, right? Like if you go back and look at it, that's how He-Man got ruined, right? Like while females were playing with Barbies, you know, while females were playing with Barbies, Mattel came along and created He-Man for the boys. The boys were playing with He-Man, having a good time, you know, and then females looked at the boys having fun and they were like, "Oh shit, that's no fair. We want to be part of He-Man or we want to have He-Man too, right?" But they were like, "Nah, fuck He-Man. We want to have She-Ra." So they basically cut the funding for um or the funding for He-Man basically got cut, right? And when the funding for He-Man got cut to make way for She-Ra, when the females started playing with She-Ra, they were like, "Man, She-Ra sucks," and they threw She-Ra to the side because females really didn't support She-Ra like that. I mean, if they did, She-Ra would still be around, right? Um, then they went back to playing with Barbies, and then as a result, He-Man died, right? So my issue with Ghostbusters 2016 was really what it was colonization. That was colonization at its finest. It was colonization, right? You come in, you act like you want to be part of the team, you want to be accepted by, or you want to be accepted in this universe, and then you come in here, and then next thing you know, you want to just go take it over and take the key elements out and make it part of your own, while you discard of the people that made the culture, right? So, anyways, I'm not trying to make this all about Ghostbusters 2016. It was a hot trash movie, but I'm just, let me stay focused, Dre. Let me just stay focused, man. All right. So, um, Ghostbusters Afterlife, right? We're talking about storyline, right? So they were onto something with Ghostbusters Afterlife when it came to the storyline, right? Like you had this mom who was a relative. I think she was the granddaughter of Egon Spangler, right? And she had all this. She basically inherited this old house. They had to move. She was poor, down and out. Had her 2 kids. She had to move with them. And then you had Phoebe, who was like the great niece or whatever, or great granddaughter of Egon Spangler, and he was able to communicate with her um through the supernatural, which was dope to me because um Harold Ramis, the guy that played Egon Spangler, died a while ago, or he passed away. So that was a dope introduction to, like, that was a dope place to start, right? And then the final image was, they saved the town by capturing these ghosts or whatever, right? So that to me was a better storyline than Ghostbusters 2. All right. So so the first thing was just opening image and final image of of um of any movie, right? What's the opening image of the main character or characters and what's the final image. Because look, nobody wants to watch a motherfucker be the same motherfucker for an hour and a half. That's boring, right? If you got to watch people be the same, I mean, think about it. Watch a movie and look at the opening image of the main character and look at the final image. If they the same, 9 times out of 10, that movie was average at best. All right. So that's the first thing. Um, second thing, second area is let's talk about the music, right? Because the music played a heavy role in Ghostbusters 1 as for its success, you know? The music played a very, very, very important role, right? So in Ghostbusters 1, you had like two major areas of music, right? Like you had the score and then you had the soundtrack, right? The score was by Elmer Bernstein, right? Elmer Bernstein was the dude on the piano, right? So if you go back in Ghostbusters 1 and you hear all the piano spooky music shit, that woo, ba-doom, 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 boom, boom. That's all Elmer Bernstein, right? That like was like the floor of the music. Like that movie had a high floor because of the Elmer Bernstein piano shit, right? That was a good solid like through line or a good melodic through line. So I'm making up words. I think melodic through line is the appropriate term to use, but it had that that melodic through line that made it feel like more than a movie, you know? Then on top of that, you had the soundtrack, right? The soundtrack was dope. You know what I'm saying? In the soundtrack, you had who was it? You had you had two major, well, you had like three major artists, but for the most part, you had the Bus Boys do two songs, and then you had Ray Parker Jr. with the main theme. And then you had like Laura Branigan with Hot Night. But then after that, you had some no-name artists, right? Like you had Mick Smiley with Magic, and then you had what's his face? Then you had Alessi with Saving the Day, you know? No-name artists that were on the upcoming or they were coming up, right? So when you mixed all that, you had artists that were giving you their best. Like Alessi and Mick Smiley, I don't know any other song that they did, but them songs slap. To this day, them songs slap, man. You know, and they played them at the right parts of the movie. So when you look at the other Ghostbusters films, right? Like when you look at Ghostbusters 2, see, Ghostbusters 2 tried to get cute when it came to the music, right? Bobby Brown, on our own, dope hit. That's a hit. That's a cut. But my issue with the Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack was they moved away from Elmer Bernstein on the piano joint, and they had some other guy do like or I think I got to go back and look, but you didn't really hear a lot of Elmer Bernstein throughout Ghostbusters 2, right? And that to me was key. Elmer Bernstein or some kind of piano melodic through line is what was needed. Not like you know, like not a whole orchestra, right? But just something like to give it like a little bump to let you know, hey, some spooky shit about to happen, you know? Um so Ghostbusters 2 didn't have that, right? It was like Ghostbusters 2 was like super marketing. Oh, we have this big successful movie. Hey, we at the top now. We got to get all the big artists. We got to get everybody big, right? So they had Bobby Brown, they had Run DMC. They brought back I think who was it? I think Jackie Wilson passed that year, and that's why they had his song. Or no, they had someone else. No, Jackie Wilson, I think, passed that year or previously before the movie was made. And then they had a person remake the song, and that became like one of the main songs on the soundtrack. It wasn't even like the original. Like they played the original in the movie when they were in the Statue of Liberty, but then when they got the Statue of Liberty moving in the wall, when they got the Statue of Liberty moving with the slime or whatever, that's when they switched over to the new Jackie Wilson or the remake of the Jackie Wilson um Your Love Keeps on Lifting Me. I forgot the exact title, but I know the song. And you know the song when you hear it, you know? Um but but yeah, they had too many big songs, right? Too many big artists. And then on top of that, the weird thing about Ghostbusters 2 was they tried to follow the same format while slapping on different songs, right? So if you remember Ghostbusters 1, it was the old lady in the library. She got scared by the ghost. Then that's when you heard, the main Ghostbusters Ray Parker Jr. theme song. Then you cut to where the Ghostbusters are right now in this like timeline, right? In Ghostbusters 2, they did the same shit, right? Like you had, but it was different. In Ghostbusters 2, you had Dana Barrett, who had a kid at the time. She's pushing her kid in the stroller. And then you had the big scary moment happen. And then they played the Ray Parker Jr. Ghostbusters song. And then you cut to the Ghostbusters at a kid's party where the kids don't even respect the Ghostbusters, right? So if you look at those two and juxtapose though, or if you juxtapose those, the librarian was someone we don't even know. It was some actress. I mean, it might be a famous actress. I don't know, but to me, she's the Ghostbusters library chick. That's all I know her from, right? But it was a no name person. She got scared. A build up Ghostbusters theme song. Cut to Ghostbusters at the university. Ghostbusters 2, you had Sigourney Weaver, the star of, or one of the stars from the previous movie. She gets scared, yada, yada, yada. Ray Parker Jr. song. Then they cut to the Ghostbusters at the birthday party. So to me, a critical error where they went wrong in Ghostbusters 2 was they kind of teased you and let you think that it was going to be the old Ghostbusters, right? So they played the original theme song as opposed to like either the Bobby Brown joint or whoever was going to do the main hit throughout the joint, right? So to me, whatever song you played at the beginning for the first scary moment, that's the song you got to play like throughout. That's the theme, you know? So they didn't commit to any theme. They just kind of like playing random, like they were good songs, but they didn't really like lock you in like they did with Ghostbusters 1, right? So the music for that, right? And then for the other three Ghostbusters movies, I can't even tell you who did what, who was an artist, what soundtrack. Like I don't even know who did the soundtrack or whatever, right? So that to me was where they dropped the ball at. Um, and something that they could have done too is they could have kept Ghostbusters in the 80s and they could have just played funk hits, man. Like you got so many artists from the 80s that didn't get any shine that they could have like grabbed like no name artists from the 80s and kept it 80 centric. But they didn't have to do that. But what's missing from the other movies from Ghostbusters 1 was you didn't have those groups, those no name groups that were hungry to be discovered, right? Like when you hear like Saving the Day by Alessi, or when you hear Mick Smiley's Magic, man, them motherfuckers was hungry. They was like, man, look at me, look like I'm here, and we don't like most people don't know who they are still, but they had that hunger in the song, right? So that's the musical aspect, right? So we talked about the storyline, the musical aspect. Let's get into another element that made Ghostbusters 1 work. Another element that made Ghostbusters 1 work was you had the right balance of comedians and actors, right? Or you had the right balance of comedic actors with traditional actors or straight man, right? When I say straight man, I mean when I say straight man, I mean voice of reason, right? So for example, Ghostbusters 1, you had Ray Stantz, played by Dan Aykroyd. You had Egon Spengler, played by Harold Ramis, and then you had Peter Venkman, played by Bill Murray. Right? They were all comedic actors, right? I think all those guys, they were all comedic actors. I believe Rick Moranis. No, I said Rick Moranis. I said Harold Ramis and Bill Murray. I think were in Second City, which is an improv team, right? So I mean, they were actors, but they were comedic actors, right? They're like more on the they're like kind of in the along the same path or in the same realm as like a Will Ferrell, but Will Ferrell's like over the top, like way over the top, you know. Um, but you had those three comedic actors, right? And then you balanced it out with Ernie Hudson, aka Winston Zeddemore, right? Winston Zeddemore was the voice of reason of Ghostbusters. That's why that shit worked, right? Because he was saying the shit that we thought that the audience was thinking. He basically was speaking on behalf of the audience, and that's why that shit like worked because it balanced it out. So it wasn't like super silly. Um, like one thing was like, for example, when you first see Winston, he's looking for a job, and then what's her face? Janine is reading off the descriptions or whatever of what the job entitles, and he's like, "Look, if it got a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you tell me." Right? That's like, hey man, he's like, "Look, I'm here for the check. I'm here for the paycheck." Right? Cool. And then when he's looking at stuff, his reactions were like he reacted the way any sane human would like act. Right? So they took a regular person or the voice of reason and put him in all this chaos, and he's calling out all the weird shit. That's why that's one that's another reason why the movie was, in my opinion, like successful. But then when you get to Ghostbusters 2, Ernie Hudson kind of was getting kind of silly, like um because I just thought about this in the shower, it's weird. I be thinking about Ghostbusters in the shower, but that's how much of a fan I am, man. I be thinking about Ghostbusters probably way too much. But when you look at Ghostbusters 1, right? When you look at Ghostbusters 1, um, I don't think I don't think Winston saw an actual ghost, right? He saw the State Park Marshmallow Man, but when they were catching all the ghosts, when they were boxing up all the ghosts, Winston wasn't part of the Ghostbusters in, right? So maybe he saw a ghost, maybe he didn't, but from what was shown on the screen, he didn't really see a ghost, right? So in Ghostbusters 2, um, when they're down in the river of slime underneath the city, and that train is coming his way, and that train runs through him, um, like he reacted scared in that moment, like any sane person would. But then after the fact, it was like he just tried to get like too silly with it. Like he was like, I think it would have been like funnier if he fainted and then they somehow woke him up, and then he got back to being like, okay, what the hell happened? But I felt like he got a little too silly in Ghostbusters 2. Like it wasn't bad, but it was like it wasn't that. Hey, what the fuck is this shit? You know what I'm saying? Because remember in Ghostbusters 1, when he was when he no he did see ghosts. I take that back. From when he went to go see when they were in the mayor's office, when they got released from jail, when they were in the mayor's office, he told the mayor, he said, I seen shit that'll turn you white. And the guys were already white. That shit was funny, but it was like that was like he wasn't trying to be funny. He was like, yo, like this shit is real. So I feel like Ernie Hudson's character was more grounded in Ghostbusters 1 than in Ghostbusters 2. And that to me is kind of when Ghostbusters, it's not all Ernie Hudson's fault, but that to me is like one reason why I think Ghostbusters 2 flopped. Not That's like a small percentage of it, but not the whole reason, but that's that. We look at Ghostbusters 2016, the all-female bullshit. Um, that shit was everybody was trying to be funny in that shit. They had not one straight person in that movie. That's why that movie didn't work. Right? Like, no disrespect to like all the female actresses in the movie. Like, they're all funny in their own right. But it became like a competition. Like, everyone was trying to land a joke, right? Like, nobody was setting anybody up. The way it was written was it wasn't written to where it was a movie. It was like, oh, hey, we're all Ghostbusters. We're still getting used to it. Hey, let's see what else we can. Like, it wasn't. They were trying to be silly as opposed to trying to push a storyline forward. Um, One other side note: when you look at Ghostbusters 1, Eddie Murphy was supposed to be the role of was supposed to play Ernie Hudson's role as Winston. And you know what? It's gonna sound messed up, but I'm glad Eddie Murphy didn't do it. Because I think it would have ruined the dynamic of Ghostbusters as we know it today, right? Because then everyone is trying to chase laughs at that point, and then you wouldn't have had a straight person in the movie to call out all the absurd shit that was going on. and it would have just been super. It would have been more silly than like movie, right? Like to me, like as a kid, I always thought when I was kid. So back when I was coming up, when I was a kid, I thought Ghostbusters was a science fiction movie, right? But then as I got older, I'm like, nah, this shit is a comedy. You know what I'm saying? And to me, it's like that's the kind of feel you want. You want it to feel like, oh, I watched something scientific, or I watched something where there was a plot that moved, but there's comedy along the way, you know? So that's just my 2 cents. I mean, Eddie Murphy playing a straight or playing the voice of reason um in Ghostbusters 1, that would have worked, but I think people's expectation would have been too high on Eddie Murphy being funny. So if he wasn't coming out there being the funniest one and cracking all the jokes, people would have been like, Ghostbusters, yeah, Eddie Murphy wasn't that funny in that, because their focus would have been on Eddie Murphy being funny or being the funniest, right? As opposed to having a straight man or a voice of reason kind of balance everything out. Um, then when you look at the other Ghostbusters, right, like Afterlife and Frozen Empire, um, they tried to get Paul Rudd to be like the comedic portion of the show or to be the comedy relief, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, man. I mean, Paul Rudd is a funny comedic actor, but they had too many serious people and just one one comedic person that was like semi-serious, semi-funny, right? So to me, it's like you missed out on that element, right? So now let's go ahead and let me go ahead and get to the shit, right? This is why I'm not gonna say this is the only reason why, but it's a major thing that gets overlooked. And I'm just gonna call a spade, right? Say what you want to say, call me whatever. The show is called Tripping with Theo Bold, you know what I mean? But say what you want to say, but what made Ghostbusters 1 also work too, in addition to everything that I said, is there was a strong sexual undertone, right? It was a Ghostbusters 1 was an adult movie where the kids were invited. It wasn't the other way around, right? It was an adult movie and we can let the kids in to watch it, but this is an adult movie first, right? For example, you had um Bill Murray playing Peter Venkman. He was trying to hit on all the women and shit, right? He would say all the innuendos, all the jokes, man. Like when he first met Dana Barrett, he was like, what did he say? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna take Dana back to her place and check her out. I mean, her place out, right? Then when he gets to Dana Barrett's house or gets to her apartment, um, he's like kind of like pissing her off by like going around and fake using the equipment to just look important or to look busy. And then as he's going to the bedroom, Dana says, "Oh, that's the bedroom. Nothing ever happens in there." And then Peter goes, "What a pity," right? And that's the sexual undertone. Like basically, like she's not getting tapped up in that joint, right? So he was like, like the sexual undertones in that movie were like so heavy, right? Um, but the thing was it wasn't trashy. Like they weren't being trashy with it, right? It wasn't um like they would put the dots there and let you think whatever. And even to this day, like I could tell the creator or the actors in Ghostbusters that there's a lot of sexual undertones to this, and they could go and deny it, but they know damn well when they were making that movie, they were like, yeah, nah, this is what we doing. Let's go. Let's take it a step further, right? You got let me pull some pictures up. So when you look at the Ghostbusters when they were busting ghosts, right? When they had the proton packs on and they had the wand, right? A lot of times that wand, they were holding that wand down low, right? And then when they doing this shit, they busting ghosts like this. They popping off, man. They popping off like that. That was that like that whole shit was a joke to me. That whole shit was a joke. That was the whole point, right? It's like the whole song was like Ray Parker Jr. busting make me feel good. Bussin' makes me feel good. Come on, bro. People gonna be like, man, get your head out the gutter, Dre. That's not. I'm like, okay, let's take it a step further, right? When they were in the Ghostbuster firehouse or the Ghostbuster house, when they were playing the main theme song and Ray was in bed, you had a ghost come in and and get that motherfucker head. Look, Ray got domed off in that movie. Right? As a kid, I remember watching that movie as a kid, and I remember like the adults just kind of getting tense, like, yo, why are they showing this? Right? But basically you had the ghost. Let me show you the picture. Right? Right? She's on top. See, this ghost is coming to visit him during the song or when they're in the height of catching ghosts, right? And then she disappears. Then you see his belt buckle unbuckle, and you see like come on, man. You got some nerds on the internet talking about, oh, well, that wasn't sexual. That was dumb. Man, shut the fuck up, man. He was getting domed off in that movie in front of everybody, man. He was getting domed, right? Strong sexual undertones, right? But the thing that made it clever was they made her disappear, and then they panned out, and then you saw him kicking his foot up in the air, and then he fell out of his bed. You know what I mean? So that was the clever part in them doing that, right? Then what else, man? Shit. You got the keymaster and the gatekeeper. The keymaster and the gatekeeper. Do you know what that means? The gatekeeper and the keymaster. Right. Dana Barrett was the gatekeeper and Louis Tully was the keymaster. Right? So there's a joke that's I think I heard it on 5150 show, because I got to give credit where credit due. You know what I'm saying? I don't be out here trying to like snatch jokes and shit. You know what I'm saying? But on 51, I think it was either 5150 or 5150 adjacent. There's a joke or a saying that goes, how's it go? They say a key that can open any lock is a master key, and a lock that can be opened by any key is a shitty lock, right? So key, lock, gatekeeper, right? That, come on, man. It doesn't get more like, that's a heavy sexual undertone, man. Even look at the photo, right? My man Louis Tully looked like he got his belt buckle unbuckled. He's sitting up on the edge of the roof or whatever that is, the banister or whatever, outside or whatever, and he's looking like he had the time of his life, right? And they were clever when they wrote this, right? Because if Louis Tully was like a macho, like if he was like a strong macho dude or like a manly man, it would look like it wouldn't be funny, right? But the fact that you have this little nerd that does taxes and shit that's been trying to get at Dana for the whole movie, and then Dana's like the hottest female back in the 80s, right? The fact that, the keymaster and the gatekeeper hooked up, that made it even funnier, right? But a lot of people like skip past that gatekeeper keymaster shit, right? Strong, like I said, strong sexual undertones, man. But they were tiptoeing that line. They were walking that line, but they didn't like fall over or like cross over. And this is, y'all gonna lose me on this one, but this is why the show is called Tripping with Theo Bowl, because I be tripping, but I don't give a shit. There we go, right? Not this one. Right? Let's take a look at this scene right here, right? Right? Let's take a look at this scene right here, right? So look at State Plus Marshmallow Man's face, right? What does that face look like? I'll wait. All right, here's what it looked like, right? Stay Puft Marshmallow Man face looked like, that's the look where if a spouse came in and saw their significant other smashing somebody else. Like if you walked in a room and you caught your old lady getting dicked down by some other dude, that's the face a dude would have on his face. Right? That's the face. Right? Little like I know it's a reach, but look at that face, man. And then not this scene, but if you go back and watch the movie, right? They all got their hands down low with the proton pack gun or with the wand, and they doing this shit. Like they finishing it off. They finishing it off, man. And it's going into the gate. They finishing it off, man. So I rest my case, man. Not a kids movie, right? But that shit is what made it. That's the shit that like made it funny was all the little, and we weren't like laughing ha ha at that joint, but there were parts in the movie that where it was like where you did laugh ha ha, but this is what made the movie interesting, man. Right? Classic movie, man. But when you look at Ghostbusters 2, they tried to do like they tried to have like you could tell in Ghostbusters 2 they were either told to or for marketing purposes they tried to like tone it down. Um they tried to tone down the sexual undercurrents, right? Because in Ghostbusters 2, there was one oh, I forgot something else. I got to come back to this part. But yeah, man, I totally skipped over this other part that made Ghostbusters 1 work, but I'm gonna get to that. But in Ghostbusters 2, um, there was like one. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, there's more shit than that, and that's what makes a movie great is when you can keep uncovering shit that you didn't see before, right? So Ghostbusters 2, there was one scene where they were in the lab where Egon and Peter were in the lab, and Peter was trying to take a jab at Egon, right? And Peter said something along the lines of, you know, no, Egon, they dig your he said they dig that big cranium of yours, right? Meaning head, right? And Egon said, no, he said, he said, no, I think they like the size of my epididymis. And that went over people's head. Like some people thought that was a made up word. Some people thought it didn't mean anything, or it's a super nerdy term that they were too lazy to go look up. The epididymis is like basically your dick, right? So they slid that in there like real slick, right? Um, but it didn't land because I guess it didn't land because people it was an Egon type joke, but that shit was funny if you looked it up, right? Which is I'm a big fan of educational comedy when you can learn new shit. You know, that's to me where learning and comedy go hand in hand. But something else I thought of that was man, I just thought about this shit. But in Ghostbusters 2, you remember when they were in the Statue of Liberty and they had all that slime? Remember they found they had that slime that basically had emotions or like carried emotions with it. Um you remember like they basically they found the river of slime. It was like that purple slime, and then they put it in the toaster. And then if you played happy music, it would be happy. If you played sad or like mad music, it would like get like violent, right? Um, they were in the Statue of Liberty, right? And they were holes in the inside of the Statue of Liberty with slime. Yeah, Picasso. Okay, so yeah, like I said, adult movie, not for kids. That to me is what made Ghostbusters 1 work. And in my opinion, Ghostbusters Afterlife, with everything that I said, Ghostbusters Afterlife, I would put after Ghostbusters 1, and then I would put Ghostbusters 2, then I would put Frozen Empire, and then that 2016 garbage shit is always gonna be in the end for me. Matter of fact, man, they gotta burn that shit. That shit was horrible. But anyways, here's one other element that made Ghostbusters 1 work, right? Another element that made Ghostbusters 1 and 2 work is the ghosts and the monsters look like monsters from like horror movies at that time, right? So there was that fear element. You know what I mean? There was that fear element. You know, like that ghost in the library scene, um, that ghost in the library, that was some scary shit. Like that ghost, even if you look at that ghost when first you had the regular librarian, and then you had it when she turned into that monster ghost. That monster ghost still to this day looks scary. That monster ghost is scary, right? So you had that fear element, right? In Ghostbusters 2, it wasn't as scary, like, but you did have the elements where you had like Vigo trying to come out of the painting, right? Like you saw his forehead trying to get through the painting. That was scary. Um, and then when Yonish, the art director, um, when he got possessed by Vigo, when the baby was on the roof, walking on the roof, right? When baby Oscar was walking on the roof, when when you saw the ghost of Yanish with the stroller come up, and then he had that big, super extended arm that reached out and took the baby. That shit was kind of creepy. That shit is like, oh, if I saw that shit, nigga, that's there was an element of fear, you know. Um, and then when and in the end, when they were trying to get Vigo back in the painting with the slime or whatever, um, when Ray's face morphed with Vigo's, that shit looked trippy. You know what I'm saying? So you had like that element of fear where the shit looked like some scary shit, some supernatural shit. Um, all the other stuff, man. When you look at like Frozen Empire, none of the ghosts look scary. Like none of the ghosts look scary. In Ghostbusters 2016, none of the ghosts in that shit look scary. You know, so that to me was a big part of like Ghostbusters, right? Is you got to have that fear element. I was playing back in my video game days. I still have a PS3, but I got the video game. I got Ghostbusters, a video game. It was a first person shooter game, and man, that game was fun, right? And what made the game fun was there was an element of fear in the game. You know, like you just couldn't go in there and pull out your proton pack and start shooting that shit and get ghosts, right? Like you had to activate the ghost, right? So for example, first you had to like first you have your PKE meter, right? Then you have to like follow like the room or go into the room where the PKE meter, where the wand or where the levels go up, right? So you have to go in there, you have to go into a room and you have to basically get closer. It's like playing like too hot or cold, right? And then when you get close to a ghost or when, the PKE meter gets to a certain point, it would trigger the ghost to pop out of something, right? Then you had to then you had to like, there was like a controller sequence where you had to put your PKE meter down and then pull out your proton pack and start shooting, right? That shit was funny and scary because the ghost, like for example, a ghost is like, if you go into a room, there'd be a trash can, you'd be like, yo, I know there's ghosts in this fucking trash can. I know there's a ghost in this trash can, you know, and you got to get close to it because if not, the wand isn't gonna, it's not gonna get the ghost to pop out the trash can. And you can't walk up on the ghost like with that's what made the game like fun was you just couldn't walk out with your proton pack up and get close to the trash can. You had to sense it with your PKE meter, and then you get close to the trash can, and then when you get close enough, man, the ghost would pop out the fucking trash, and you're like, oh shit. And then me, I'm such a scaredy cat, man. I'm fucking dropping the controller and shit. Like, yo, how the fuck do I put this fucking shit? I got this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that shit is what made it fun. And if you played this shit like in the dark on the big screen TV, man, that's just scary as shit. But it's stupid. It's like that boo ha gotcha type shit. You know what I mean? So Ghostbusters 1 had that. Ghostbusters 2 they didn't really capitalize on it as much. And then all the other Ghostbusters, man, they tried to make it a kids movie, right? Let me also let me double back on something I want to say about the music, right? When you let me double back on the music, right? So when you go back to the music, right? Like I said before, right? What made Ghostbusters 1 work was you had two levels of music, right? You had the melodic throughpoint or the melodic throughput or whatever word I used, right? Which was the Elmer Bernstein playing the piano shit, and then you had the soundtrack, right? When you looked at like Ghostbusters, Afterlife, and Frozen Empire, right? They used they had what's his name? The dude from Stranger Things, right? They basically tried to make Ghostbusters the new Ghostbusters Stranger Things. And they took a play off marketing where they used what's his name? Finn Wolfhard, I think his name is. Yeah, film. I can't get his name right. Finn Wolfhard, yeah. Um, yeah, the dude, the Mike from Stranger Things, right? They had him, right? What they could have done, which would have probably made the movie pop a little bit more, is they could have got those two guys that did the synthesizer stuff from Stranger Things. What those guys' name? What are their names? What are those guys' names? Yeah, Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein, right? They could have like had them do some like synthesizer shit throughout the movie as the melodic throughput for the movie, so that way like you had like an eerie feel to what was going on. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't do it, so it is what it is, man. Um, but yeah, what else, man? So that to me is why everything I said, all the aforementioned statements that I made, that to me is why Ghostbusters 1 worked. Um, and to this day, it's my favorite movie of all time, man. You put that thing on, man, my eyes are stuck on the TV. It doesn't matter what point of the movie I'm in. I know that movie line for line, beat for beat. Um, I'm watching it. Ghostbusters 1, right? And I think that a lot of times in life, people experiment and find things, and then they find a combination of things that happen to work. But then as we've seen throughout life, they never really figured out or um re-engineered or backwards engineered why Ghostbusters 1 worked. And that's why we have the movies we have now, right? Like I said, the newer ones, they're more like Stranger Things, right? No comedy, just mysticism. There's nothing to be like to me, the ghosts or the monsters in Stranger Things were scarier than the ones in Afterlife and Frozen Empire, you know? Here's what I want y'all to do for y'all homework. Look, I'm giving out homework now and shit. Here's what I want y'all to do for y'all homework, man. Cause look, I'm still a big Ghostbusters nerd, man. Um, like the cartoons, I used to watch the cartoons like a motherfucker, man. As a matter of fact, I got the box set in my living room, right? And those Ghostbuster cartoons as a kid, them joints is creepy as shit. Them cartoons used to scare the shit out of me, and they still do, right? Um, there's two episodes, right? I mean, I used to watch Ghostbusters like just in the morning, every morning, like every Saturday morning, I would get up, Ghostbusters, no, it was called the Real Ghostbusters, right? And they were marketing to the kids, so therefore, yeah, there's no sexual undercurrent or no sexual undertones in the movie, you know what I'm saying, or in the cartoon. But the fear element is like that shit is real creepy, and even the way they drew the ghost, man, the ghost looked real creepy, man. Like just the way they made him look in the cartoon. But probably the two episodes I remember the most, right, are what is it? It's the one is called The Boogeyman Cometh, and the other one is called Mr. or it's called Mr. Sandman or something like that. Let me actually show y'all right quick, man. All they had to do for one of the Ghostbusters movies, man, in addition to what I said, right? All they had to do is this. Let me see something right quick. this shit would have been like funny and scary, man. But I could have, as they really, the whole Ghostbusters universe dropped the ball on this, man. Um, the boogeyman cometh, man. Let me see if I can find the image of it, right? And to me, Ghostbusters is making the same mistake that 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 like DC is making, right? Like they're not following like the cartoons that made them work, right? So let me just find this one that was. Here we go. This will have to do. Um, Let me just, yeah, cause y'all need to just go watch the episode for y'all homework. But this shit, man, as a kid, when I saw this shit, this shit used to scare the shit out of me, man. Let me just go ahead and get both of these images for y'all. Get that one, and then let me get the Sandman. Here we go. All right, let me go and add these in here. I'm trying to make sure I got the visuals down for you guys so I can show y'all what I'm talking about. Right? It's called it's called substantiating your evidence. Right? So here we go. We got that. And then let me get, oh man, I want that. I want this. And I want that. Add these two. Okay, this is, there we go. Right? This was the boogeyman, right? And it was like this half man, half donkey looking thing. And the way they did the episode was dope because the boogeyman only came after kids, you know? And uh it was like the way they had it was like a black family, and you had like this you had this boy, this brother and sister in this room, and the boogeyman was just coming around, and he would come and scare the kids and shit, right? And he would come out the closet. So when the parents came back in the room, the a boogeyman was gone, right? So the only way for them to be caught was you had to go to the Ghostbusters. So the kids went to the Ghostbusters and they were like, "Yo, we got the boogeyman, and oh, we got the boogeyman, and he's scaring us." Oh, and then they had they brought their little like piggy bank, and they had like 50 cents to pay the Ghostbusters, and then uh like the one Ghostbuster, I think it was Egon or Ray, it was one of those two, but he remembered the boogeyman as a kid. So he was like, nah, this is real. We got to help these kids out, you know? And then they're in these kids' room, and then they're trying to get the boogeyman, and then the parents come into the room, and then you got these grown men in the room with the kids trying to catch. That was a clever episode, man. They should have really expanded that into a movie, man. That shit would have been a classic. And then on top of that, it would have worked for a movie because you get the Ghostbusters out of the regular universe, right? Because in all the Ghostbusters movies, they're in some place on Earth, right? But in the Boogeyman episode, they had to go into the Boogeyman's realm. So they had to wait until the Boogeyman um basically, oh, they had to wait until the Boogeyman opened up a portal, and then they had to go sneak into a portal to get into his universe. And let me see if I can show y'all the Boogeyman's portal. Uh see, Boogeyman, Ghostbusters, realm. Cause it was like super like chaotic, man. Um man, just watch the episode and you'll see what I'm talking about. Watch that shit, man. That shit was a dope episode, man. Yeah, I can't find the realm. But then on top of that, then um you had the Sandman, right? And the Sandman episode was dope. Well written episode, man. Right? With the Sandman episode, basically he basically would like play this like magic flute and play this music, and he would like put people to sleep, right? And then just keep them like in this trance state. Um and it was a music heavy episode where they had like a lot of songs and like a lot of upcoming artists that were trying to like make it or whatever. And the opening episode was this guy was like reading a comic book, and then the boogeyman basically like played this song that put him to sleep, but he would make the dreams of the people not he would make the person dream the dream, but then he would basically make the dream part of the reality, which was dope. So um the Ghostbusters had to come around, and they had to, I think it came down to one Ghostbuster that, because I think a few of the Ghostbusters got caught up too. So, like I said, man, these episodes were dope, man. And what I just found out too was the villain, all the main villains in Ghostbusters were played by the same person. It's that same scary voice, but the voice is scary as shit. But the Sandman's voice was the same. The person that played the Sandman was the same that played the Boogeyman and everybody else, man. So, anyways, y'all go do your homework, man, and y'all tell me what's up, man. I think I'm all ghost busted out. I think that's fair to say. I'm all ghost busted out. Um, yeah, man. I'm trying something a little different. So, rock with me for a second. You know what I'm saying? Here we go. Yeah, I'm trying something a little different. Um, so boom. AT is where it's at on most forms of social media. You know what I'm saying? If you guys enjoyed this episode, watch more episodes, make sure you give it a like. But without further ado, I'm out here, folks. Peace. Tripping with Theo Bowl.